Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of the Brain Cancer Podcast. Now, in this episode, what I've got to share with you all is a great interview and chat that I had with my friend Paddy, who is over in Ireland, and we sort of did just a sit-down chat call in which we both just shared our experiences and what some of the differences are between the US and Ireland, and how as brain tumor patients, so many of our issues overlap regardless of where we may be on this planet. I think it was really beneficial to me as well, and I want to say thank you to Paddy for coming on the show, and hopefully we can do it again in the future, because I really enjoy these personal type episodes where people are allowed to express themselves and just be able to vent and relate to other people in the same situation as us, because sometimes it can feel lonely. So before I waste any more of your time, we're going to get into this interview right now.
Great, Chris, thanks a million for having me on. My story, I guess it's a lot in common with other people with brain tumours, and probably a lot of differences, really. I was just a regular guy, regular job, work in the Irish social services, which is great, and then had just gotten married and gotten my own house and got a promotion and was working in Kildare, and then started working out in North Dublin. My wife as well, similar trade, and then also got a promotion, worked for the local council, from Kildare County Council to Dublin City Council, and things was great, and then we both were just flying and gotten married, and then we came back from our honeymoon. We had a mini-moon first in Italy, and then we took, 10 months later, we took our honeymoon we went to Florida. And we did all, Disney and Universal and all that kind of thing. And then we went on a 10-day cruise out to the Bahamas, and things were great. Things were really, really good, And then I got back from our honeymoon, and then, everything was just so busy and stuff like that. And, work was always really busy. We had a HICWA inspection. The inspectors came out to see us once we got back in the job I'm in. And that was great, and we got through that. And then I just felt as though we'd just settled. I think it was about, God, let me think, 2019 would have been June, and everything was fine, and just, changed the car, and I got in from work, and 34 at that stage, and I was like, this is great, everything's flying, and like that. We were starting to really, we were doing incremental steps, I suppose, get married, get a house, go on the honeymoon, be happy in the work we were doing, and then we're both in the caring profession, where I'd be what you guys would call, like, I guess, Child Protective Services, and Emma's in housing, so like that, we're just absolutely flying. Came in, and it was like, I don't know, it was like, I know that day I came in, I knew that was it. Everything was fine, and I was just going to, not a different approach to life or anything like that, but we were ready to start the next journey. Emma was watching a popular soap, and messing had a tea towel, and she threw a tea towel at me, and I was messing, and I went to catch the tea towel, and then all of a sudden, and then I just felt a bit funny, and then I was texting on my phone, and my coordination wasn't bad, and next thing then, the left side of my mouth drooped. And I remember saying to Emma, like, ambulance, 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 like that, The ambulance came, and it was like, they got me, that was fine. This was on a Monday. So we went up to the ambulance, the ambulance brought me to the local hospital. They sent me out after an hour. They just said, oh, look, you're just tired, which was absolutely fine, so that was grand. So back to work Tuesday, no hassle. Then Wednesday, my doctor retired, so then Wednesday evening, I went to this other doctor, a new doctor, who I got, so my GP just recently retired, Dr. Garrity. And like that, then what happened is they said, look, just on Thursday, just go and get a scan. So I said, okay, no problem, get a scan, that's fine, I'll get a scan. So I went back to work Thursday, was in court that day, And then what happened was felt fine, absolutely felt fine. And then on my like a bachelor's party, like a stag party for a friend of mine, a detective friend of mine from school, we were supposed to go out on the Friday. I was really looking forward to it because I've been to football matches all over the world, like between Prague and Rome and Celtic Park and all this kind of thing, but I'd never been to Anfield. And one of the parts of it we were going to Anfield, so I was really excited about that. But did the private scan after work on Thursday, and then they said to me that you can't travel tomorrow to the stag party. You've got a mass or a lesion on your brain. So they sent me then to the hospital. So I started in the hospital, got the private scan, and they sent me back to the hospital. And I went to an Irish hospital on the north side. And then so what they do is from the scan in the place in Smithfield, they give you like a CD, DVD kind of thing, and then you have to bring your scan with you over to the hospital. So I was waiting in A&E, accident and emergency, for a while, and then what happened then was they said to me, you can't travel tomorrow. You've got a lesion on your brain, and you could have a stroke. They were very apprehensive about telling me what I had. So that led to 5 days in hospital, and then they do the MRI scans, the CT scans, and then they put the scans in with the dye. So it's your blood and that kind of thing. So I was there for 5 days, and I had surgery, and it was a biopsy, so they took a biopsy. So that was grand anyway. And then they let me out after 5 days, and then they brought me back in after 10 for the results, and obviously it was a really worrying time. And then they hit me with it that I had a brain tumor, incurable, inoperable, It really, Chris, it just threw everything up in the air, you know what I mean? And that led to being off work for 5 months, on a lot of medication, putting on weight. And don't get me wrong, I've been incredibly lucky. Like some of the people I've met already in the Dublin brain tumor community have died, so it's never a good result to get a brain tumor, like that. But there's people out there who got an awful lot more, who got an awful lot worse news than I did. Guys with kids, guys who are single, guys who are renting, this kind of thing. I know it's different for everybody. I was just really lucky I got great support from friends, great support from my own family. My wife's family got great support from work. Did manage to get back after 5 months, and that's been really going well. So I did get a lot of support, but like that, I was lucky in some ways, but really, really lucky in others, and then was on a lot of medication, off the road indefinitely, which really, really hurts. I drove a really, really nice car. It was very rare. It wasn't an expensive car, but it was really, really nice. And I'm off the road indefinitely. And then it's just the not knowing, Chris, is the thing, and it's such a pity. And then I moved back home, and I rent out my own house, which is a great thing to be able to do. But now myself and Emma are back with my parents, and we'll see how that looks next year, or what we're going to do. So it's just really life just got turned upside down in every way, emotionally, career, just, medication, that kind of thing. It's just, I used to really enjoy going out socially. I don't do that anymore, and like that. So I'm really missing a lot of things, but grateful at the same time. And it's just the not knowing, I suppose, that is the tricky bit. And but feeling okay, just glad, I suppose, that the news wasn't as bad as some of the other people with brain tumors, and mine could have been better though too.
Where is your tumor located at, or is it like a diffuse type of glioma?
Yeah, it's the left side, and then it's a gymnocytic astrocytoma on the left frontal lobe, spreading over into the right. And I know very little about tumors, but some of them are just like a grape that grows, and then some of them are like a fried egg, like a splash. That's mine. It's like a splash of a fried egg inside. And then some are infiltrators, where it could attack the rest of your brain. And some grow really, really quickly, and some grow really, really slow. So the difficulty I have is that I'm getting so much different information from the professionals. between radiology and then the doctors in the hospital and the medication, everybody's given me a different answer. So again, and this every time, like gematocytic was the first word, and then it was diffuse was the next word, and then like that. So it's really, I'm just getting different information all the time, but it's the left frontal lobe, and it spreads over a couple of areas in the brain.
So it's an inoperable tumor.
Yeah.
Did you do any radiation or like chemo?
Yeah, with the chemo, I suppose. Look, it's chemo. It's a strong word, and even with brain tumors, it is a strong word. But they're calling that maintenance medication, I guess, is the thing. And but what I did is I did 6 weeks radiation with the maintenance medication every single day. Then they gave me a 2-month break, and then I went on 6 months maintenance medication, and that was the 23-5. So that would have been 5 days on, 23 off. Did that for 6 months. Now I'm just out in the community. So like that, scans happened to me 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, which would have been a year. So that would have been, say, November 19 to November 20. And, and now I'm just the result of all those scans in. What they're saying is that it's stable, and then stable, it's another loose term, stable. Like I've heard of people have been stable and then unfortunately them dying, a month or two later, so stable is a loose term. So what they call me now is out in the community. And then like that, obviously I'll have to do another scan at some point in time, but I'm hoping that I can just be left out in the community until I see a progression where, because I see a progression where whatever, I don't know what it is, that symptoms anyway. And then I would contact them, because like that, sometimes if you didn't have much support, they would just have, scan or whatever. But I've been in with my wife, I've been in with my dad and this kind of thing, so they do know that I've a solid network, I guess, so that I could come from further scans. So out in the community is what they're saying, yeah. And I had 6 months of the maintenance medication, and before that I had 6 weeks of radiation where I took those meds every day.
Yeah, I still get my scans every 2 months, and I think that's also because I'm still on the maintenance dose of the immunotherapy drug that I'm on.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it, so I have to get a scan every 2 months. Just like yours, everything has been stable so far. That's the word, so far. And we never know what it's going to look like 2 months from now or 6 months from now, and it makes it so hard to plan for anything in the future.
Absolutely. And then, if you wanted to go, the plan was we were going to go to Sydney. I've already been, and we're going to go to Sydney the end of January this year. COVID happened and stuff like that, and that was our long-term plan, but it just never happened. And now you're saying, if you could travel, what would you, and God forbid something happened, would you be putting a cost on your family, trying to get your body home or anything like that? Joking with my wife, saying if we do go away and anything does happen, just leave me wherever I am, But like that, it's tricky, and you just don't know, and that's the thing. And we were planners, like that. We lived a very, very frugal lifestyle, I'd say. We did well. We didn't live to excess by any means. We lived a very, very frugal lifestyle, and we planned everything to an inch of its life. And then having this, it's just. Now all of a sudden the chance is involved in our lives, or unpredictability is involved in our life. So it's just really, really disappointing more than anything, so it really is disappointing. And it's so much appointments and so much letters and so much doctors and so much form filling. It's such a full-time job being unwell, it really is. And then there's no centralized system over here. You got like a letter the doctor will need a letter. You go to the DLP, the designated liaison person in the hospital, and then they have to go to someone else, and then they have to get it signed off, and then it goes back to you. And it just completely goes around in a circle, and it makes things difficult,
Yeah, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, Definitely. It sounds like.
I'm in the civil service, and I have a little understanding of the system. So I really do feel sorry for people who are outside the system, or people who don't have that level of support, because I'd be struggling, and I would be familiar with the bureaucracy, and that kind of thing. So, like, what I do try and do is get involved in the Dublin community of people with brain tumours, and any assistance I can offer, I do, like that. But it's very, very, I think nationally and certainly globally, is something that's really, really underfunded, and like that. I think it's because I don't know. It's because it's one of the lesser known cancers. I don't know what it is, but like that, there's something anyway.
Yeah, it seems like with the brain cancer, we have some of the worst outcomes. We don't have an entire month that the NFL or a sports team dedicates to brain cancer.
Definitely, totally agree with you. And there's no prejudice attached with the disease. And you see Joe Biden's son, he got it, and a lot of their famous singer died recently. There's a band out here, The Wanted, another band famous in Europe. Their lead singer got it, so it doesn't discriminate. Luke Kelly of the Dubliners, he died of a brain tumour, but look, and there is long-term survival. There is that, so that's what I just put my hope on is there is people who have it, 20 years, loads of people who have it 20 years and still moving forward. And then there was one case of a girl who went from malignant to benign, like that. So it can, which is amazing, I think whatever part of the tumour did shrink, it was that part of it, so this is just what you cling to and that kind of thing. And you just when I'm having a good day, I try to have a really, really, really good day. And when I'm having a bad day, I just try and just get on with it, I'm not sure about the standard of care either between surgery, the maintenance medication and radiation. I mean, I think with the medication, I think, I'm nearly glad I'm inoperable, because I think if you stand toe to toe with a brain tumour, the tumour's going to win, like kicking the hornet's nest now, like that. And then other aspects is like, rather than a full-on attack of it, maybe guerrilla warfare over time and chip away at it. If that's between, I don't know, your Keppras and the steroids and the turkey tails and the turmeric and all that kind of stuff, maybe that's the key. But Chris, what's working for me is controlling the narrative, surrounding yourself by people who are positive, and then having short-term goals like I'm going to do such and such a Christmas in February. I'm going to go to, say, a short holiday to Galway in Ireland. And if I keep having short, realistic goals in front of me, and I think, like, even getting on this podcast was one. I said I would love to do a podcast with someone. So I searched it out, and I came across you and your YouTube channel and your Facebook and that kind of thing. And then I said that was like a short-term goal, and looking for it and getting it done, that's kept me going for 5 to 6 weeks, So it's that kind of thing that I think short-term goals is absolutely the key, and just controlling the narrative. If I get bad news about, not being able to drive, say, was the last bit of bad news, yet a bit of a delay with that, So like that, I'm floored, So just trying to get as much good news as I can, and then if I hear one more time and people mean best, oh sure, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow, that's a real Irish thing, like that. It's not what I need to hear. And then everybody becomes an expert about their aunt had such and such, and their aunt had this, and the aunt was flying, or their uncle had this. But it's not the same, because there's so many. I think there's over 200 different variants, I suppose, of what we have, so like that. And every single case is different, because you could have really, really, really bad indicators but be long-term survival, or you could have 99 things that are really going well, but that one thing, it's what's going to end your life prematurely, So it's still every day just coming to terms with it. We had a nice day yesterday. We went out, it was the All-Ireland final yesterday, and we just went up to Stepaside, and we took a drive out there, and then like that we drove around there, and we came home and we food and we watched the match and stuff. So just when it's a good day, just try to have a good day,
Yeah, I'm very much the same way. We just had this big snowstorm here where we got like 13 or 14 inches, whatever. And I told my doctors that I was out shoveling. I went out at 5:30 in the morning to get a nice start on it because it didn't stop until the afternoon. And my doctors were surprised. They're like, "You got up at 5:30 to go out and do this?" And my response was, I'd planned this the night before. I'm like, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to go outside, get a good portion of this snow shoveled, and then I can come back out later in the afternoon. And that's what I did. You know, it's difficult, but it was something to keep me moving, keep me active. It really is those small things. And whether it's gardening or raking the leaves outside, small things that get me outside. Personally, for me, something I really enjoy. I'm lucky that I live near the Arboretum here, and it's beautiful during all seasons. The fall colors are amazing, and they have a whole rose garden in the summertime, and it's nice because I can just go do a short walk, I can just do the short loop, and I can be back at my apartment in, half an hour. But if I want to spend a couple hours, I'll go all the way to the end, and I'll be there for 3 hours before I head home.
That's absolutely fantastic that you have that on your doorstep and like that, and you're keeping active. And then I guess with the snow shoveling and that kind of thing, I suppose you'd have a sense of achievement. And that's the thing. There's some days I'm out and I don't even feel, or I forget that I have such a serious condition, that kind of thing. So it's I'm glad you're able to keep active as well. And I think it's even been outside. I think it's a huge benefit,
And we're both, fairly north. So the sun does set a lot earlier right now. My thing is, hey, by the 21st, the days start getting longer again. So I'm always counting down to that. And then the days start getting longer. They might not get warmer, but they'll start getting longer.
I totally agree with you. And then like that, April is my favorite time of year, and then getting to the short-term goals, that kind of thing. I'm just saying, if I can just get to April, it's my favorite time of year. And then the Premier League that we do watch here is coming to an end, so it'd be an exciting time around April. And it's just trying to move in that direction and just trying to stay positive, So I do see, like you're saying about the doctors and your dialogue with them and that kind of thing. And then sometimes I do go in when I get the scan or the scan results, and how you doing? And like that, I'm doing fine. And it's nearly like they're surprised, and it's like that. I don't know, if there's so many different medications, there's repurposed drugs, there's CBD and the THC. I haven't tried that yet. There's the neurobilizers, the oxygen and that kind of thing. Like there is a lot out there, and I'm not like some quack or conspiracy theorist, but there is a lot out there that like the keto diet and this kind of stuff that the doctors mightn't recommend to you. And I just think they're just so safe, like that. And I would absolutely try anything, and it could be placebo. I don't care as long as I'm feeling well. And you have the Joe Tippins protocol and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just open to whatever's out there, so like that. And it's great that you've gotten a clinical trial. There isn't a whole lot going on over here with clinical trials, particularly lung cancer, but with brain tumors, no, you know what I mean? But I do think the positive attitude, controlling the narrative and surrounding yourself with positivity is great. And I've had so many old friends from school reach out, neighbours, my wife's family, my own family. It's been fantastic, and in that sense I do count myself really, really lucky, Chris,
Oh, for sure. I think sometimes I might even be overly positive, because when I get to the hospital or when I get to the imaging center, everybody knows when I get there, because I'm always not loud, but people know that I'm there because I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? And, I've been going there for a few years now. It's just amazing. You're in the situation where we're all there for the same reason, whether it's when I'm at the infusion center or at the imaging center. We're all there for a reason that we probably don't want to be. But if it's just people sitting around, I try and bring a little bit of levity and a smile to people's faces when I'm there. I don't take myself too seriously. And I think that super positive attitude, for me, it really helps me mentally too. Like, I don't want to get stuck in a rut and just not be able to get out and it's been really hard this past year ever since March when everything really shut down.
Being in the caring profession, I'm just so reluctant sometimes to take help off anybody, and like that. I want to be the information giver. I want to be the one giving the guidance, giving the direction. That's what I'm used to. And then I don't really function well to sit down and then people offering me advice and help, and then thankfully so far I haven't, lost much. I was never ever academic ever, but I definitely was sharp, and I definitely was a quick thinker, but never academic. And I don't think I'm as quick as what I was, even, even different, like concentration, maybe watching a film hasn't been what it was. Or I used to play a bit of cards that I still do, and I enjoyed it, but definitely now not as, I wasn't the best card player in the world. Definitely maybe my judgment playing cards and that wouldn't be what it was, so. And then that's the whole thing about, second guessing yourself, if I'm reading something and I don't understand it and I have to read it twice, I'm like, is that the tumor, Paddy? But maybe it's not the tumor. Maybe it's just normal. You know what I mean? So when you have something that you have to think of, you're constantly second guessing yourself, which makes things a bit tougher as well.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot too. I don't know if it's from the Keppra or just my brain, but I feel like I get distracted more often, whereas like I might start a YouTube video and then I realize, oh, I wanted to look at this thing on my phone, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot I was supposed to do this, and then I go and then I'll end up with like 4 different things going on. Sometimes it's hard to focus on just one thing.
Yeah.
And that happens more often than it really should.
And then I the other thing is that it's like the whole pity party thing. Like I had a really good relationship with my friends and things was fine, and then there's always a bit of banter and people having the crack and that kind of thing. But now, and I was probably always the butt of the jokes maybe, but like that now, it's like everybody, I don't want obviously people to be mean to you, but everybody kind of wraps you up in cotton wool and that kind of thing, and it's just tricky, and it's people have been absolutely fantastic, but it's just I don't need that, you know what I mean, and I don't need anybody's sympathy or a pity party, or or you might just say something and people think you're cracking a joke and they're laughing, and it's like that you mightn't even have been cracking the joke, and I just thought it was that's one thing. If I could change anything about the whole thing, would be how I controlled the narrative at the start. Whether I should have maybe told, I should have maybe not told anybody at the beginning, because once you tell one person, they tell 2, 4, 8, and then it goes out that way. Yeah, so that would be. And then the other thing that bothers me the most, I suppose, is definitely being the pity party. But it's great that people aren't being rude to you, but at the same time, it was just something that I wasn't ready for,
When I ended up in the hospital, I only wanted 2 or 3 specific people to know that I was in the hospital and what I was in for, because I knew that they wouldn't go out and start telling people. Because if I don't know what's going on, and then it gets out into, Facebook land or whatever, it's just going to multiply and it's just going to become some other story. Then your phone starts getting overloaded with messages, and it was like, I'm trying to process what's going on here because I'm not sure. And like, I wanted to make sure that nobody would know until I was sure. It just took me a while, and now I'm very open about it. It just took me some time to be able to comprehend what was going on and feel comfortable enough that everybody else could know. I just needed specific time for myself to just process it, because it was an entirely unexpected thing that happened to me.
Resonates, and then other people see you and then they're like, oh, look, you're doing well, you're cured, and that kind of thing, which really is something that I struggle with, and I wish I had held off on it becoming public knowledge, but you can't plan for these things. I guess yesterday I was up out the top end of South County Dublin, and I was we spun around the college I attended, which was University College Dublin. So nostalgia starts to become a big part of your life. So you go to places where you had a good time, and you go to places that you really, really enjoyed, and that kind of thing. And then different things like my work, I'm doing a bit of work in Dublin City at the minute, and like that, you're dropping into things like the Garden of Remembrance, or some of the galleries, that you hadn't seen, and it's just really trying to say, like, it's always in the back of your mind, like, if you don't know, is this going to be my last time, passing by here? Now that is a bit extreme, but like that, that's what starts going through your head. And you do, and I heard people saying, having an illness, they start to enjoy their life a little bit more. And in some respects it is true, because if you're in a certain place at a certain time, I know I'm going to Paris in May, like that, with my family, and then I'm going to make the most of it, because you just don't know if it's going to be your last time. So, you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing that you do try and make the most of anything, of every day, really,
I totally agree. I try and live each day as best as I can. Mm-hmm. Nothing in my future is guaranteed, but I do have my short-term goals, and I have things that I want to do, like, into the new year. It's also, unfortunately, reliant on how the virus pandemic situation works out, because really nothing is open right now.
They just announced out here that there's a new strand from England, I think, that they've announced a whole lockdown of international travel. That's going to really, really have a serious effect, and especially if this new strand, they say, and I don't know much, and a lot of this medical terms and jargon completely goes over my head, but something along the lines of some new strand or something, and it's more contagious, so it'll spread quicker. So absolutely everything is just closed over here. It's a difficult time.
There's really not much as, like, third parties that we could really do except just be careful. You feel helpless, and it's oddly like how we feel with our brain tumors. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, and there's a certain amount of anxiety towards the future. And now it seems like the whole rest of the country or world is experiencing a similar type of thing, where they're having this anxiety about something that they can't really control.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And it's nearly like inadvertently people are having the same, I don't know how to say, that kind of claustrophobic existence through the COVID that people with brain tumors have, Energy, like, I traded on energy all my life, and I was always very, very energetic, and then probably a bit eccentric as well, and then my wife always said, gosh, I know Emma about 10 years now. It would have been the Maybank holiday in 2010 was our first date, as you guys would say, and like that, Emma always felt guilty that how did she not notice, or how did she not pick this up, or that kind of thing. But they reckon I could have even had mine about 20 years, from about in around from 16 or 17, they reckon, and then Emma would feel guilty for not picking it up, but they reckon I have it about 20 years. And then with the energy piece, I still have energy, I do get tired, but just not as much as I did. And I definitely think what I was, the last 3 years before I was diagnosed, I was drinking, like, a lot of coffee. Now, I never really drank it after 6 o'clock. Then I never really drank it after 3 o'clock. But I would have 2 serious cups of coffee in the morning to get out going, and then and I drink 2 then in work, and then I used to smoke cigarettes, and then I smoked the e-cigarette, and then I was kind of doing half on and half off. So the weight, I was never heavy. But since I've gone up from 9.5 stone to about 13.5 stone. So hopefully now, I was on like 12 medications, but I'm only on 2 now. One is the steroids, which I'm hoping to get off. And then the other one was Keppra, which will probably be lifelong, but hopefully they keep the seizures at bay. And I haven't had any seizures in over a year. So hopefully then, that's the thing. But it's tough. And I was never, ever sick. I was never, ever, ever, ever sick until this, and so it's tricky, just such a life changer,
I hardly ever got sick before I was diagnosed or anything. I was always in pretty good health. That's when all of the changes started, and it became so obvious to everybody else that something was wrong. But in my head, where with the tumor growing, it was just telling me everything is fine and everybody else is wrong.
Yes, yeah.
I look back, I was just too stubborn. I missed all of these obvious signs, and there's no way to know how long it may have been there before my symptoms really started to ramp up, because I went downhill quickly. In about 2 months, I became a totally different person. It was just so obvious, and I started throwing up and passing out once in a while, and the seizures and all that.
And what did it look like being that totally different person? What did that look like, or what were the traits?
Because mine was in the right frontal lobe, basically where your personality and all of those traits are, I became much more angry and aggressive. My performance at work started to suffer. My relationship was essentially just falling apart.
Okay.
We just kept getting in fights, and she was telling me to go see a doctor, and I was too stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And then I would get on the train to go across the river to Cambridge to play some cards, and I would make it one stop on the train before I have to get off.
Right, okay.
Throw up in a trash can. And then I would just get on the train and come back home and just lie down. And that went on for at least a month and a half until it finally became too much. And I ended up basically my entire, from my waist down, just stopped working. And I just...
Really?
Yeah. It was awkward. But so, the whole hospital thing started, and then they did the CT and then the MRI, and then we got my surgery all scheduled for a couple days later. It all happened so quickly. The thing is, during that entire month of September, almost all of my memories of that entire month are gone. I don't remember anything.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was just...
That's unbelievable.
It was just that bad, and my tumor was pushing into the other half of my brain. And there was a big cystic area.
Okay.
And I know that I wouldn't have made it through the new year, and that was in late September. There's no way that I would have lasted much longer with that tumor being that big.
Right.
And the thing is, you don't know until you're already in the ambulance or getting your scans. You're like, oh no.
That's the thing. And there's no time for prep, no time for planning. And like that, you're already on the back foot. You're hit with this news, and you're in a hospital, and you're coming to terms with how different your life's going to be. And then the questions come: how long did I have it? When did I get it? What happened? What can I do? And that kind of thing. But I think it's great that you got some of yours out, which is absolutely fantastic. And my next thing is, and I know the doctors wouldn't have the answers, can you shrink it? What does it take to shrink it? Because some people, I know there's all these edema and necrosis, and they're just flashy names, I guess, for swelling. But then you do hear people whose tumors do shrink. And aside from the chemo and aside from the radiation or the surgery, they're the three things attached to the medical model. But like that, I'd absolutely try anything. Now, there just isn't much out there. I know there is the gamma knife radiation and stuff like that, but I never had any need for private health insurance. And like that, I probably, if I had the time back, I probably wouldn't even have done it, if I didn't know where I was going to be, because I just didn't need it. You know what I mean? And then here, the public and the private system, they're pretty much similar. What you might get seen a bit earlier, you might get a nicer bed in hospital, but for brain tumors, there wouldn't be much difference, honestly, in the care that you're provided. But that is another thing. I've heard some really tough stories from out your neck of the woods. I know you're out in Boston, about people who that's the bit. Oh, am I insured? Can I get insured? How long am I going to get insured for? And the whole treatment depending on your insurance. I have to say that as bad as the treatment is over here and the inconsistent information, you do get the basics. You do get the basics, but I feel, is it the case in America that if you've no health insurance, are you at a real disadvantage in America if you've no health insurance?
If you need anything more than just you go into the urgent care unit and they have to treat you, but there's a lot of paperwork to go through if you have anything like a brain tumor. I suppose if you have expensive private insurance, that would all be taken care of. But the one good thing about living in Massachusetts is we have, before the Affordable Care Act, we had basically the exact same thing, but just for Massachusetts, where every Massachusetts resident had, it's called Mass Health. That would ensure that every resident of the state was covered. So that was another really good thing about living in Massachusetts, is that I had, Mass Health, and I was able to just go into the hospital, and I'm still getting treated at MGH. It's a wonderful hospital, and I love the team that I have.
That's really good to hear. Because in Ireland, you would have like the doctors in the hospital and the doctors in the radiation, and the communication is quite poor. And then I guess Ireland structurally is what, in all aspects of Irish society, whether it be the Department of Education, housing, social protection, all the structurally. And my job has been absolutely fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better employer during the whole thing. But I do think with health in Ireland, structurally, there's a lot to be done, and a lot that needs to be done as well. And we have a two-tier system out here, private and public, and sometimes the public system could be better, just in terms of reducing waiting lists, doing appointments over the phone, spending less time in hospitals, and then a lot of medication gets handed out quite easily over here, and that brings more problems. So I do feel as though definitely we've a long way to go in the Irish health system, and I really got an understanding of that once I got the tumor, and I think there's a lot they could be doing an awful lot better,
Yeah, it's not the greatest here either. The United States, it's the only country that has such a private and for-profit healthcare system. Some of these drugs, it's ridiculous. I couldn't afford to pay for the infusion that I get every month. If you look up the cost of it, it's somewhere around like $12,000 per dose. Thankfully, that's all covered because it's a clinical trial, so I don't have to pay for it.
How did you hear about did you ask for the clinical trial, or did they offer it to you, or how did that happen?
One of the hospitals that it was being run out of was MGH. So my doctor, she had already figured that based on the results, the genetic profile of my tumor, that I could either do this clinical trial or I would do like the standard of care, which was radiation and temozolomide. And if the clinical trial didn't work or it stops working, I still have the ability to go back and do the temozolomide and Temodar.
Right.
So it just made sense to use the resources that they had there and be a part of this clinical trial. And I really think that it's one of the reasons that I'm still here.
And like that, I'm trying to box clever as well, like that. If it is a thing that I took 6 months of the maintenance meds, so I'll have an option, I hope, if things do get worse, that I could get onto a year's program of that. Now, they won't be, because mine was so deep and like that, and the radiation, they said to me, there could be, the good of this could outweigh the negative, or vice versa, or whatever it was. So I won't be getting radiation again. But because I only did 6 months of the maintenance meds, that could be an option down the road a bit. And then, for myself, I'd have to get the name off you. The neurobilizer, or that kind of thing. It's like an oxygen machine that's supposed to help. I'm not looking at doing any THC or CBD oils. First of all, it's way too expensive. Second of all, I'm not against it, but it's not something I'd like to, get dependent on. And I think there's others like epilepsy or that kind of thing. I know there's great benefit there, but it's not something I'm going to get into too quick and that kind of thing. And again, I do feel to take that holistic or eclectic approach, whether it be walking or that kind of thing, or like I say, surround yourself with positivity, and a great, and Chris, thanks so much for having me on. Doing bits like this is really, really, really helped, and that kind of thing. So just doing bits with friends family at the minute while I take the Keppra and that kind of thing. So I do think that works as well, you know.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on. It means a lot to me, too, just to be able to sit down and talk with somebody else that can relate to being in the same situation. And it doesn't matter, there's an ocean between us. We all still suffer from the same thing. And we all have the anxiety and the feelings towards being in this situation. And I think that getting to share your story, it's helpful for you, it's helpful for me, and I know that it will be helpful for anybody else that listens to this.
Absolutely, and like I know you've been over to Ireland before, and absolutely, if ever you're coming over, do let me know, and we'll be able to show you the sites once you came over. And like that about the public awareness, it's just great for me to, I suppose, put my version of events out. And then again, I know listening to your podcast certainly gave me a lift. It really did, and it really helped me in my journey and voyage with having a tumor. And like that, I do my best as well to talk to people. I guess I'm 35 now, and I was diagnosed when I was 34. So like that, I'm only a year and a bit into this, but I do try and if I meet people in the hospital that are, you know, very old or even very, very young, and then want to know your story, and I certainly want to know theirs. So I, like yourself, going to the hospital, I do respectfully, you know, ask people how are they doing, have they got a tumor as well, and this kind of thing. And I do find there's definitely good for me and good for them, you know, just even speaking about it, you know. So your podcast absolutely gave me a big lift. It did.
Well, thank you, and we can definitely do this again, and it's open to really anybody. I want to have more people on to be able to share their experiences. I think that really helps a lot because it makes it more personal, I think.
Definitely. And in a couple of months, and that whole short-term goals, and if I'm thinking, oh, you know, Chris might have me back on in, say, June or August, it's the body then is getting ready for it. And the body, you know, and I know this could sound a bit airy-fairy, but if it's working, I'm just going to keep going with it. Like if the body believes you're getting on, you know, Chris's show in April, that kind of thing, the body will prepare for that, and maybe it will keep moving forward in that direction, you know. So absolutely, I would love to do it next year, definitely. You know, there's a couple of candidates within the community. I must mention them to you as well. And I know they'd only be delighted to get on as well, you know, which would be great.
I'd love to have more people on, and everybody can be proactive. This is what I wanted to do, to be proactive in my brain cancer journey. Just being able to share my story and share information helped. But there's nothing stopping anybody else from doing the same thing. I mean, could do like an Ireland brain cancer podcast or group, or do something like that that keeps you all connected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that peer support and encouraging each other will do absolutely no harm. And there's so many tragic stories where there was a young girl from Dublin who was doing well and then went downhill quite sharply. There was a guy from Wales, and he was I'm conscious of not naming these people, but he really helped me out at the beginning, and he died. And then there was this other guy. He was never spoke to this guy, but he was a Welsh international judo competitor. They are people who just got the worst news. You know, they got the GBM news, they got the 4 news, the methylated was bad, the IDH1s was bad, and all the positive indicators that might lead to long-term survival, I just wasn't there with them. And I just thought some of them were just so, especially that guy from Wales who actually wrote a book. I might actually contact his family just to see how they would feel about, you know, if I got on again, mention him, because he really gave me such a lift, and he was really funny. And we used to do the Messenger on Facebook over and back, and he really had a great sense of humour. And I just thought he carried himself with such nobility, I suppose, if that's the right word, and such grace, you know. So I can only hope I can do the same thing, you know, and maybe have that bit of influence, I suppose, on other people who have the same condition that we do, you know.
I 100% agree.
And if we all do our own little bit in our own little way, like that, it can help. And I don't know, like globally, there doesn't appear to be anything, and it's just I do think there needs to be a more active global response from survivors and also from the government and the health sector and that kind of thing, because it really is like of illnesses. It's like the poor cousin of illnesses, and I've learned so much since getting diagnosed, but have so much to learn, and so much of it as well like that does go over my head, and then there's a lot that the doctors don't know, and sometimes I wish they would just say, look, we just don't know, rather than getting, like, you could have the register, you could have the professor, you could have a trainee doctor, and I know that's fine, and that's what we depend on, but I just feel in the hospitals, they've loads of staff, but maybe they've the staff in the wrong places, so there's lots and lots of staff, but then where they seem to need the staff, there doesn't seem to be many of them, so that was, I did find that a hard pill to swallow, but yeah, and then trying to get back on the road as well is a bit of a challenge, but I think I am stable. It's just the part where there might be a little bit of instability is the part of the brain that could affect a seizure. They're not willing, even though I'm a year seizure free, they're not willing to sign me back on the road yet. Stable in terms of health, but not stable in terms of the risk of a seizure. So there have been days that I did feel it's like, oh, was I going to have a seizure or was I not? So I'm totally taking the medical advice until, see, they'll have to sign me back, then I'll have to go to my doctor, and then he'll have to sign me, and then I'll have to go up to the licensing authority. So it's nearly like 3 meetings before I can get back on the road, but I'm going to take it really, really seriously, because I don't want to be driving down the road and then have a seizure, because I could put somebody else's life at risk. So I'm just going to have to be patient with that one, I think.
Yeah, it's the same way here. Varies by state, like whatever state you're in has different time lengths. I think in Massachusetts, you have to be 6 months seizure free before you can get your license back.
Yeah, suspending the license was a tough day, I suppose, but 6 months, that's great. I think with us, it's a year after primary treatment, which is the maintenance meds, and then could be 2 years after the maintenance meds, depending on how they're saying they're treating you. And then it's just wordplay, and it's heavily open to loose interpretation, and then I know with the 4, I don't think under European legislation, or maybe I don't think you can get it back at all, so it's just tricky. I know that guy who has it, he's on YouTube, he's his own channel. He's 10 kids and with the 4, and he was back on the road after 6 months. So it's just a pity. And I think the legislation over here is only quite new. So had I been 3 or 4 months the right side of it, I probably would have been back on the road now, but like that, it's just another barrier and obstacle that I'm overcoming,
And that's pretty much what our whole experience is. It's just one more thing in the journey to overcome.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're the same, but I was so independent. Like, I just come and go as I pleased. And before I met Emma, like 21, 22, 23, 24, went wherever I wanted to go, and it was just like really just, it was great, and worked different jobs, worked in pubs and worked in nights with homeless services, did youth work and that kind of thing. And then to join the service over here, I'd met Emma, and then I was like, I better, pull up my socks here. So I joined the service, I think it was the 21st of August, 2010, I just had a really good 10 years and remained independent then, but like that definitely has been taken away, because if you're going, you have to bring your medication with you, have to remember to take the medication. People need to know where you are. You're with somebody all the time or that kind of thing. So it is definitely a loss of independence. I can't just, 6 o'clock on a Friday, ring up a couple of the guys and say, oh, we're going here, there, or whatever. That's completely gone in terms of transport and in terms of just being able to do it and worry and having the tumor hanging over you. I'm not saying like I'm locked up, because I amn't, but you definitely lose a lot, and you do carry it around with you, and you start to think like, what have I lost, or potentially what could I lose, or that kind of thing, in terms of time or in terms of life experiences, but then again, with your trial or whatever, and then me moving forward, who's to say, that we won't both be long-term survivors is definitely a distinct possibility. Like, definitely is,
Well, and once again, I totally agree. Do you want to say any final words?
No, absolutely, and feel free to leave in. I'm really glad to be on, and what I'll do is I'll definitely give you a shout next week or the week after when Christmas dies down. I'll give you a shout in January just to check in, and just thanks a million for having me on, and definitely stay in touch. And if there was a similar opportunity maybe in April or May or that kind of thing, 100%, just thanks again for having me on. I got a great lift from listening to your podcast and from coming on today. Thanks a million.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
As we wrap up here, I want to give a big thank you to Paddy for coming on the show and for sharing his story. It really means a lot to me that people are willing to come on and put their story out there for the world. And if you would like to come on the show, you can just send me an email at braincancerpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/braincancerpodcast. Follow me on Twitter at braincancerpod. And I will definitely get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you all so much for listening. And I will be back with another episode soon. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.